Frank Sepe for Fit to Serve with Robert Wilkins. Robert, want to introduce our guest?
Hi, thanks, Frank. Hello, everyone. I'm really honored to have a fellow airman with us today, Master Sergeant Chase Griffin, Air Force recruiter there in my old stomping grounds, Brevard County. He's in Rockledge, Florida, and I was stationed at Patrick Air Force Base at the time, but he's now at Patrick Space Force Base. So, Chase, welcome to our podcast. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how long you've been in the military, and how you got into recruiting?
So my name's Chase Griffin. I'm a master sergeant in the United States Air Force. Currently a recruiter. I recruit for the Air Force, Space Force, and Air Force Special Warfare for the enlisted side.
Mm.
I've been in the Air Force for about 15 and a half years now. I originally came from a super small town in the middle of nowhere in Kansas called Burlingame, just 30 minutes south of the capital there, Topeka.
So Rob is going to ask you all the, military um, questions. And I'm going to ask you what the laymen want to know, like the general public. Like we've all seen the movie Men in Black when Will Smith goes in and they recruit, like, he pulls the table over to put the test on it and so the pencil doesn't go through. Now with the military, Air Force and space, you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars of expensive of planes and equipment. Like, what is the process for finding people who won't smash that into a cliff or a meteor? Like, I mean, that is a huge undertaking. So what's the process?
So the process usually starts with when they come into our office, they call us, or we meet them at a school because we go to a lot of schools as well.
Mhm.
The process just asks some questions about their pre-qualifications, whether it's height, weight, medical history, credit history. We also go into any kind of morals violations, like if they had any kind of parking tickets, traffic tickets, law violations.
Wow.
Certain ones, obviously we're not going to be able to work with. Going off of that, we can kind of see what kind of applicant they would be if they're going to be qualified for the Air Force or Space Force.
What about tattoos? I've seen a huge increase in tattoos. And when I had first joined in the military, I think more in the Army and the Navy, I saw tattoos, but I've been seeing more and more people actually with some sleeves on their arms. So has the standards been adjusted so now people can have tattoos?
Yeah, they've been adjusted a little bit, so you can have full sleeve and everything like that as well. You're limited to the size or quantity on your hand, as well as one on your neck behind the opening of the orifice of your ear,
Hmm.
which can be a certain size.
We've all seen Officer and a Gentleman. Richard Gere wanted to fly jets, and and the whole deal. You had to go through the obstacle course and all the physical things that they had to do. Can you take us through some of those things in the training to get ready for during, I guess, basic training?
So to get ready for basic training, one of the things that I do is, well, every recruiter that's in the Air Force is supposed to have a delayed entry program, right? So everybody that's coming to the Air Force, when they swear in or when they're in the process of joining, they meet up with the recruiter once a month, face to face.
Hmm.
And we go over things to prepare them. We go over benefits that they're going to get while they're in the Air Force and Space Force, as well as doing a little bit of PT with them. For me, I do a little bit of a circuit. We hit push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, stuff like that.
Wow.
And then we do some sprints or just a little bit longer distance run, just so they can get an idea of what it's going to be like when you're working out at basic military training for the Air Force and for the Space Force. And then on the Aim High app that we have, it gives them different workouts that they can do and sees the different physical fitness stuff that they're going to have at basic military training when they're there,
How
so they
do
can
you
prepare for it.
how do you recreate the G-force in the plane? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like you watch, I don't want to keep going back to movies, but you watch Goose and Maverick and they're like, it's not about I don't think, it's not about how big you are or what have you, but how do you kind of recreate that so that they're ready for, or do you have to take them up into the actual plane to do that, to make sure that they're not going to fold under pressure up there?
Yeah, I mean, most of our airmen and guardians, they're not going to be in a plane at all anyways, right? So most of our jobs support for all of that.
Mm,
So very limited airmen are actually on air crew status, and you
gotcha.
have pilots as well who do that. So most
Okay.
of the airmen, they won't even have to deal with any of that.
Oh, okay.
So, Chase, we've seen stats that are not so good right now about the obesity and lack of physical activity in our nation. So, the standard or the number I've seen is 23% out of 100% qualify for service. Out
Wow.
of that 23%, 12% already go to school or have a job that they like, so they're not interested. So that takes us down to about 11%. And out of that 11%, 2% say, I don't want to join, leaving us with 9%. With a nation so big, with the demands of our national security so great, how are you finding people, or how difficult is it to find people to join the military, especially during times like right now where there seems to be so many conflicts around the world?
Mm.
It can be it can be a little difficult. It depends on your area that you're in. For me, being here in Florida, I'm really blessed to
Mm.
be over here by Patrick Space Force Base. So a lot of people know what the Air Force is or know what the Space Force is because they see all of these launches. They see all these airmen or guardians in their uniform coming from work. So I'm blessed in that fashion. Like I already have a presence here with the military, so it's a little bit easier for me to talk to them about it. However, you have other recruiters that are stationed all throughout the United States. They might be in the middle of nowhere in like Kansas or Montana, Wyoming, stuff like that. They have to travel a lot more and go to a lot more schools. So it's more about that inspiring and educating those individuals when they're there at those schools on what the military is, and more specifically, what the Air Force is, what the Space Force is, and what Air Force Special Warfare is, so we can let them know what it is we do and the missions that we help.
How
So
many?
for
Interesting.
me,
Oh,
it's go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
So it's for me, it's just getting that word out there, doing that inspiring, educating part, as well as my social media, because I'm hitting a
wow.
lot more people on social media than I can just walking out, doing my zone canvassing and stuff like that. I hit a larger audience with it because a lot of the youth today, they're on social media. So for me, it's just doing that inspiring, educating part on social media as well.
Mhm.
That's
Frank, go
interesting.
ahead.
That no, it's interesting to me because now social media is obviously 50-50. You got 50% negative, 50% positive. You go on TikTok and we look doomed as a nation, especially with our youth. It's just horrific what's going on comparative to what it was decades ago. I mean, just lack of respect for the American flag and stuff that you see people doing. Like in social media, do when you're putting up recruitment and stuff, do people kind of, is there anything negative coming through, or is it just been a positive experience, hopefully, for you through social?
It's it's been both, to be honest.
Yeah.
You have people on there that have done a certain job before.
Mhm.
They'll throw their negative connotation with that job from what they had in their during their service, right? Or you have people um, that will say amazing things about it because they had an amazing time while they served.
Yeah.
So you get both, to be honest with you. So
I don't think the people realize, and it's like, just talking to the youth around the country, how blessed we are as in to live in the United States and what it stands for and what have you. You're like Rob said, you're pulling from a small pool right now. How is the recruitment, like since you've been in the military, you've been in for decades, how is it different now than it was back then?
whew,
Yeah.
kind of hard. It's for me, it feels like it stayed mostly the same. Some of the technology and everything that we've used when I first got in, it's expanded tremendously. Like a lot of the stuff that we were doing, we were just, some of the parts we had to do because I'm transportation, ground transportation by trade. So we had to go out there and deliver parts to all of the different aircraft maintenance units, whether that's like screws, bolts, um, tires, blades for the aircraft, right? Some of those we used to have to write down on the forms, have them hand sign it. Now
Yeah.
that stuff's being digital. It's on like a cell phone or a tablet. You go
Wow.
out there, just scan it, and they sign it like that. So that's one of the ways I've seen it transform that way. With recruiting, everything you have to hand sign everything, all the papers. Now it's all digital. The applicants have a pin that they create, and they sign everything on the computer. So it's just digital. It's paperless. So that's a lot different. When I was in basic military training, we had payphones. We had to buy calling cards to call back home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They got rid of those. So now they get to utilize their cell phones, which I think people just have a lot of misinformation about because, these trainees, they're not just sitting there on their cell phone. It's coming out when they get a phone call and they're getting watched by their drill instructors. So it's not like they're just scrolling through TikTok or Facebook or something. They're making their phone call to their loved ones. letting them know what's going on and everything like that. And they're putting it back up in a lockbox.
So Chase, I would think the training that you have is very demanding. It's very encompassing because you're not only dealing with, you know, future airmen, you're dealing with someone's child. So dealing with parents, I would think it'd be very, very important role that you have there. So during your training, are there courses or things that you do to make sure that you are covering the bases, to make sure that when a parent hands over their most valuable possession, which is their child, to you and says, you know, will you take care of my child, that you're honest about what you can do, but you're giving them as much information as possible? Because I also think some of it's on the applicant, on the recruit, that they have to do what they're supposed to do to pass basic training as well.
Yeah. So what I do, me personally, whenever my applicant comes in, they get one of these folders over here to my side. This folder has a bunch of information about the process to join, step-by-step process, and then it has information about the jobs, it has information about what happens at BMT from 0 week all the way to
BMT
7 week.
is
Basic military training, sorry.
okay. Thank you. Mhm.
So it has information what they do every single week. That way they can look at it, let their parents look at it, and it has information about graduation. That way, when their parents go to graduation, they know that it's a 2-day process and not a 1-day process. And it breaks it down to every single event at basic military training graduation. And I just added a few more things in, like where graduation's held at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. That way they have all of that information. And then I also tell their parents, hey, you need to download the Aim High app, because this is going to give you even more information, and you can follow your son, your daughter, or your loved one on the application, and it shows pictures of them throughout the weeks, so they can see that as well.
Where are the
But then I also tell them, like when they ship off and they come here and they say goodbye and they get on the shuttle to go, I give their parents a card and I let them know, hey, call me if anything happens or if you need any more information.
That's
So
when the parents do a dance. They're like, yeah. where,
some of them do.
where are the majority of the recruits coming from now? And are they men or are they women? What are the ages? Roughly?
It's a good mixture for me here in Brevard County in Florida. Most of my applicants are going to be males. Majority of them are going to be anywhere between 18 to mid 20s. That's what it is for me. So it's
What is that, the actual age from the youngest? What is the youngest that you'll take, and what is the oldest that can still sign up?
Yes, sir. So you can start the process at 17
wow.
in your junior, going into your senior year. And then you'd be in the delayed entry program until you graduate and ship off for basic training, all the way up until the age of 42. You just have to ship out before your 42nd birthday.
Oh, wow. Is that right? 42. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Missed it.
Yeah, wow. So, for example, say Frank walks into your office. What is the process, or how does that start? Because the other thing I want to talk about, you know, when you're talking about weight and lack of physical activity, how about the opposite side, where someone like Frank, who's, you know, in great shape, probably weighs more than what the military standards are? Is there a test or some kind of a procedure
BMI?
that he would be able to go through, so that because of he's still in great shape but doesn't fit the weight standards, is there a waiver or something that he possibly could get so that we don't miss out on a great candidate just because he doesn't fit the weight standard?
100%.
Oh.
It's actually awesome that they just started doing this not that long ago. But if somebody did, like Frank, if he walks in my office, I'm like, okay, well, I really want this guy in here because he's physically fit, probably be a great candidate for special warfare. We have a form called a body fat mass form, and what he does is it takes the height, the circumference of the neck and the waist, and then once we put that into our PDF, it will actually give us the body fat percentage. And as long as he's below 26% for a male, he's qualified. So he could be over his weight, max allowable weight for his height, and still be qualified. For females, as long as you're below 36%, you're qualified.
Now, if you go on Aim High, what would it tell you that what to expect from the basic training? Like how many miles you have to run, how many push-ups, how many pull-ups you have to do so you can prepare?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it gives you what the PT standards are for your age group.
You know roughly what they are, like as far as like, you know, people watching now, they're like, all right, I might be interested, but you know, I watched the movie and they're running 20 miles, you know, every other day and I can't run. Like, so obviously you don't go in there, they don't expect you to run 20 miles. There's a build up to it, right? Like they help you
Yeah,
get.
they build you up.
Yeah.
So you're gonna do some running. You're gonna do a lot of HIIT training, high intensity interval training as well, to prepare you for the PT test,
Mhm.
and that way you're in better shape once it comes to that final one for graduation. So you do a lot of HIIT training. You do some running as well. But what they found is, with more HIIT training, it improves the cardiovascular a little bit more than just them running the whole time. So they
Yeah.
do a lot of that to prepare for it. But yeah, you do a mile and a half run. The time on that really just depends on your gender and your age group. You have a minute for push-ups, and then you have a minute for sit-ups as well.
I just came from the Spartan Extreme Death Race in Vermont, where they have candidates. Basically, they put them through some extreme mental anguish. Like they put some of the, well, most of the people in a very cold lake, and they had to stay in the lake until they finished a Rubik's Cube, right? And then once they finished, they had to take their partner, put them on their back, and go like 3-4 miles. And then like they were just then clean. There was like one after another, these like mentally kind of trying to get you to quit. Is there anything like that? I know, is there anything? Because a lot of people don't know. Like, they're going in this blindly. So I'm like, they see these Spartan death races, they see these extreme things, they see hazing at college
Yeah.
football and frats. So they're like, I don't know if I can go to military because everything I've ever seen, people are yelling at me. And I don't know if I could take the yelling. Like, so just talk me through that. Is there anything that really tests, or is that come
You
through the head?
you do have like obstacle course while you're there at basic military training, but it's not nothing like you're sitting in freezing cold water doing a Rubik's Cube or anything like that.
I
It's not
did
it's
do in
not
the
that
90s.
challenging. So but most of everything that you're doing there, like you do have drill instructors. Do they
Mhm.
yell? Yes. They're not yelling at you to offend you or, call you any kind of name or anything like
Yeah,
that. They're just yelling so they can correct you. So everybody else knows, hey, I'm not going to do that because that's the wrong way.
right.
They're That's why they're yelling, is just so everybody can see what the correction is and what they really need to be doing. But yeah, they're not going to be yelling at you, getting in your face like that. They can't get physical with you at all. So
Yeah, I mean, millennials now you go on any media outlet and they're calling the new generation cream puffs because they're not as mentally strong as people who were born in the 80s and 90s, and that maybe for technology, maybe the way they're brought up. So I can see that being a hindrance to some of the recruits because some people are not allowed, that they can't take yelling or they can't take any kind of stress, you know.
yep. One of the things I always tell every single recruit that walks out that door, to go to basic training is I tell them, hey, to prepare yourself mentally, and this is going to help you out a lot, is, hey, you probably got yelled at home for free. When you go to
Mhm.
basic training, you're getting paid for it.
That's
You
great.
worked out at home for free. When you go to basic training, you're getting paid for it. Well, then they all take that, and like that's what helped me through basic training
That's
when I
great.
was there, 15 and a half years ago. And it's every recruit that I've told that to, they say it helped out a lot. So
Sure. And Chase, what is a common or a basic day like? So they start at this time and they end at this time, but can you kind of walk us through what fulfills or fills those, say from 5 to 8 or 5 to 7 p.m., 5 a.m. to 7 p.m.?
usually when they wake up, they'll start with getting their room. Not They're going to start out with PT. Usually depends on what morning it is. They're going to start out with that. Once they get back from PT, they're going to shower and get ready, I believe, and then go eat chow for breakfast. After that, they're probably going to go to some kind of classes until lunchtime. They're also going to work on. I don't have the exact schedule, so I apologize. But they do a lot of foundational learning about the military and the Air Force, and specific for the foundations of it. That way, every single training that's there is prepared when they become an airman. So we want them to know the foundations of the Air Force, how it works, the rank structure, the structure of the Air Force in general, and all of that. They're also going to do a lot of marching as well and team building exercises.
What kind of food are we having here in the
It it really just depends
Metrics,
on the
Frank,
day.
metrics.
metrics? Are there supplements and like protein and stuff like that on in basic training, or is it just strictly?
So you get your normal food, whatever's there at that day at the dining facility. There's water, there's Gatorade there as well.
Oh, wow.
But at night now, they actually get a protein bar um, at night, so they get a little bit extra protein. So
Very cool.
that's all they get for supplements.
All right.
And you mentioned they start off with training. Can you share with us why physical training is so important, why physical fitness is so important to not just basic training, but in your opinion, the military overall?
Yeah, so physical training for I think in general for the military, for me, like it's gonna stop all of the health ben or sorry, all the negative effects from obesity, right? You get a lot of negative health related issues when you start becoming obese. So it's going
Mhm.
to curb all of that, which we don't want any of our airmen or any of our guardians or service members to start having health problems once they're in, right?
Mhm.
Physical fitness also helps with stress levels, makes you more mentally sharp, basically makes you like once you're fit, I feel like you just have an extra, I don't even call it like a little oomph to it. You know what I mean? Like you're
Build
what's the word I'm looking
confidence,
for?
You're
right?
fit
Build
to
Confident, yeah,
serve.
confidence.
confidence.
Yeah,
Helps your
Fit to
confidence a
serve,
lot.
that's what you are.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're a lot more confident. So you
Mhm.
have that there because that's what we want our leaders to be confident. We want all of our airmen and guardians to be confident. It also helps, like I said, those stress levels. That way, when you are in a deployed location
Mhm.
or you're stateside just doing a regular mission, you don't have all those stress levels. That way, when you're making decisions for missions, you can actually complete those without worrying about it or stumbling on the decision. So
The team building, obviously that's the most important. So I would think that one would want to get in the best shape they can to support who they're working with or whatever mission they're going on together or what have you, so that they can be 100% for everyone else, not only for themselves. And like you said, that's a real confidence builder in, wow, look, I'm in great shape, not for myself. I mentally now feel better and physically, but now I'm able to help everyone around me. I could be the best I am. And I can't imagine anything feeling worse than not being able to physically do something that everyone else can do out there because you overate or you slacked on something or whatever. So I would think the team building would help that, resolve that.
it definitely does. Like when I had my back surgery last year, I had a fusion on my L5S1.
Ooh.
Um, you know, having that back injury made it to where I was getting, I don't want to say more health problems, but my leg would start hurting because my sciatic nerve or, I
Painful.
couldn't bend over. So it's hurting other things. Um, so my team had to pick up the slack for recruiting for me. Like if they had to go to my school visit, they had to take care of some of my applicants and stuff like that. So that was taken away from them just because something happened to me health wise, right? So keeping being healthy, whether you're just an airman or guardian, whatever your job is, it's going to help out a lot. Because if I was probably a little bit more healthier and I didn't mess up when I was doing something with my back,
Mhm.
the team would have been a lot better off. So it just takes all that extra stress off them.
Right. How long is basic training?
7.5 weeks.
And from basic training, what is the next step?
So the graduation's 2 days for basic military training. You have Wednesday and Thursday.
Mhm.
That Friday morning, they get onto a bus. They either go across the street in San Antonio to Lackland, wherever their tech school is, or they get on it. They go to the airport and they fly them to the location of their technical school. So technical school is the next step, and that technical school is where they learn basically the basics of their job,
Mhm.
so they know what they're going to be doing when they get to their first duty assignment.
How much do you get paid for the 7.5 weeks?
It depends on what rank you come in.
What if you're coming in out of high school? You're like, you know what? I
So
want to.
if you come in out of high school, you don't have any JROTC, which is junior reserve officer training. Um, if you don't have any of that, you're going to come in as an E1 with less than 4 months, which is about close to $1,800 a month. But the good thing is you don't usually have any bills while you're there, so you're not utilizing any of
Not
that
bad. I
money.
mean, you're getting
So,
free room and board and clothes
yep.
and everything else. I mean, it's not. It's actually, you know what? That's not bad. What's the perfect like? Take me through some. So now you're recruiting. Uh, let's just say after high school, there's a lot of people that want to come in after high school. What are some of the things that are the red flags where that you're like, I know you touched on this before, but I'm like, what are some of the red flags? It's not going to let, these people become potential,
For
on.
me, for me, it's commitment. If they come in here and they're like, "Ooh, I don't know, like I'm really set on this one job, right? This is the only job I want to do."
Mm,
Or if they're just not fully committed, like, I don't know if I want to do this, and they're just questioning the whole thing back and forth, back and forth. Because to me, like, I have to spend a lot of time on one applicant just for the paperwork, the pre-qualification, getting their background check done, scheduling them to go up to MEPS, which is the military entrance processing station. So we have to get them to that step just to see if they're qualified for the Air Force and Space Force, because they got to go up there, they got to do their testing for the ASVAB, which is just like an aptitude test.
mhm.
They take their medical exam up there, and that's where they dep in, which is like into our delayed enlistment program when they take the oath of enlistment. So it takes a lot of time to do that. So if they're not fully committed, I don't want to spend all that time with them when I could be spending that with an individual who is committed to join the Air Force and Space Force.
Mm.
So to me, that's one of the biggest red flags, as well as putting them on our practice test for the ASVAB, because I want to make sure that they can pass. So if they come in, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to take the practice test." I'm like, "All right, well, you kind of have to, because I need to see where you're at, because I need to see if you're
Mhm.
actually going to be qualified for the military."
Right.
So
Mm.
So Chase, with what you just described, seems like a very tedious process, but there has to be a cost to all this. So do you know what the estimated cost is from getting someone by the time they say, I'm interested, the work you put into them, getting them to basic, their flights, their uniforms and all that? Let's just say the first day of basic training where they're functional. What does that cost approximately? I would say looks like it'd be approaching $100,000 or so.
I'm not positive on the cost from start to finish for the recruiting aspect, just because the hours could fluctuate quite a bit
Mhm.
for each individual. But I believe the cost for each individual to go to basic training from day one to graduation is, I want to say, somewhere close to $20,000. Not 100% positive, but I can find out for sure.
Has
Oh, $20,000. That doesn't seem so bad, but then when you're looking at hundreds of, well, how many people total are required for the military on an annual basis? Do you have any idea for all the services?
For all of the services, I don't remember off the top of my head. For the Air Force specifically, for the Department of the Air Force, we're looking at, I think we're at 20, close to 27,000 just this year. So the Space Force, I believe they were at close to 1,000.
Right.
So talking about 20,000 a person, that's a lot of money.
Sure.
We have anywhere between 6 to 800 people graduating every single week.
Oh,
wow.
wow. And so when you said 27,000 this year, does that mean that the annual number of recruits required has a fluctuation?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, it fluctuates every year
And why?
depending on the National Defense Strategy and the
Mhm.
National Defense Authorization Act, on what we need for to defend our nation. So it depends on what they set, and then we figure out how many sessions that we need into the military. So
What do
that's
So
kind of what it all gets based off of.
have the numbers for 2025 come out, what the recruiting requirement is for 2025?
From what I heard, it's supposed to be a little bit over 30,000. So
Wow.
it's gonna go up quite a bit for all of
Oh, wow.
us.
Right.
So
what's the commitment for a recruit when they sign up? Is it how many years is it? And,
yeah, you can sign two different kind of contracts. You can sign a 4-year contract, or you can do a 6-year contract.
oh, okay.
Those are the two different contracts that we have for lengthwise.
Sure. So what you described, say if I really, in the candidate or the basic training recruit you put in, you you and the recruiter see they're doing a good job, but say if they get injured and they can't stay, whatever the injury is, if it's going to be over a certain period of time, do you send them back home and do they have the opportunity to come back and retry? Because things happen. And when you're dealing with thousands of people, a
Sure.
great potential recruit could have been injured, but the requirements for recovery could be 4, 6 months or longer. So I don't know if the military could sustain them. Like, is there a MASH unit that they can put them in that keeps them that long?
Yeah, usually if they get injured while they're there, they're gonna go to what they call med hold, which is they go to the hospital while they're there. They figure out whether it's something that they can heal from and still
Mhm.
continue service, or if they need to um, have an entry level separation, go back home, take care of that problem, and then try to come back into the Air Force or military. Um, I've seen both of them where somebody stayed in the med hold for anywhere from a few days to a few weeks and was able to finish. I've seen other ones where I put a kid in, he had to have something done with his eyes, and then he came back to my office and he enlisted in the Air Force one more time to pursue special warfare.
Oh, wow.
So it
What's the
depends on what the injury is, and it depends on the length of it, I believe.
So now you do your job and you get you get the recruits there, but what's the dropout rate once they're there? And why, and is there a reason why? Like what's the number one reason why they're dropping out during
So I
big
don't have, yeah, I don't have the numbers on the exact dropout rate.
Mhm.
However, when I talk to some people over there at basic military training, some of the drill instructors, he tells us the main reason is going to be injuries, more than likely from PT, right?
Oh,
Because
wow.
not everybody's preparing for their physical fitness while they're there at basic training, or sorry, preparing for basic training. They're not doing any physical training to prepare for that. So you can get shin splints or other stress fractures and stuff like that. So
Chase, it almost seems unbelievable that out of all the obstacles that come people's way, that it's physical fitness or lack of physical fitness that gets most people out of basic training. So with that stat, that's very, very powerful. Is that being shared with our lawmakers and our school boards? Because I would think with 80% of those who serve coming from military families, bases and schools around military bases really should have strong physical fitness programs, probably starting at K through 12. There's only 6 states right now that mandate physical fitness, but to help our nation stay secure and protect our freedom, we need fit people. And if we need those people, so do people like from Frank's family, law enforcement. So does the fire department. And so does FedEx. They also need people who can lift and between that certain age. So do you know, is the military trying to address this issue with our elected officials? And I know it's a powerful question and it might be above both of our pay grades, but I do think it's something that needs to be at least addressed and talked to or talked about.
yeah, I think that would be definitely way above my pay grade. But no, yeah, I think you're right. Like it should be something that's pushed. The United States, I think we're pretty high in obesity compared to every other country. So in order for
Mhm.
us to be a more, a healthier country, we need physical fitness pushed out there to everybody,
Mhm.
not just for the military, but for everybody,
Right.
right? So starting in grade school, that way they build that foundation in elementary school, keep building it in middle school and in high school. That way they're better off throughout their whole life. So
Sure.
at least having a pre-basic training program for people? Because if you ever seen the meme, people on the beach in the 70s comparative to people
Mhm.
on the beach in 2020s, it's an epidemic, now with all the weight loss drugs now, semi-glutide and everything else. And that may make you skinnier, but it's not going to make you fitter. So
Right.
it's another easy way out. So like I could see why people are dropping out because they're, kids right now, a lot of kids can't even run a mile, or do one pull up. So yeah, I think you're right. You guys are right. It has to start at the school level.
Sure. So Chase, how do you think America can help you? Or it's not even helping you, it's helping the recruiting, but it's helping all of us. Like, do you have any suggestions based on the experience that you've had speaking to thousands of young people coming in, speaking to recruiters and basic training instructors? Are there like 3 to 5 tips or suggestions that we should maybe help push out through our platform here at Fit to Serve?
yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems is we're getting less and less people that serve. So there's gonna be less people that in your family who serve. So you're gonna hear about it a lot less, especially if you're not by a major military installation. So just getting the word out of what the military is, what we can offer, all of that. Just spreading the good message of it. I mean, we have a lot of amazing benefits to offer people,
Like what?
right?
Can you give us
Whether
2 or 3 really great benefits that you personally have used that have really helped you and your family?
Yeah, definitely. The free or low cost medical insurance, medical coverage, right? Like I had 2 back surgeries. That would have been well over $400,000.
Wow.
I didn't have to pay anything, right? I have 2 daughters. We didn't have to pay anything for, my wife to have birth. Um, all covered. Is amazing. So I think I only pay $30 a month for my wife and my daughters to be covered fully for medical insurance, which is well below the national average per month. So not only that, but we have tuition assistance and educational benefits. I've got 2 associate's degrees, and then I have a bachelor's degree in business, which was fully paid for by the Air Force. Because we get $4,500 for tuition assistance every single year to pay for your associates, your bachelor's, and your master's degree.
Mhm.
So unless you get the GI Bill, even if you don't use it, you can give it away. Like my daughters have my GI Bill right now, so I'm saving that for them, and I'm gonna eventually here soon start my master's degree.
Chase, you can get all this information on Aim High, right? Basically, what Pat.
Correct. You can get it all there, or you can go to airforce.com and get all that information as well.
Sure. And so while we've touched on some negative things, do you have like one cadet story, one recruit story that really stands out for the excellence, or that you saw them in one way and they turned their life around and they became something different, and now they're this shining example of the being part of America's greatest team, which is to me, the United States Air Force?
Yeah, one that like really hit home for me was, because like you saw in my article, like my mother went to prison for a few years, and then I ended up living on my best friend's couch for the last couple years while I was there in high school until I left for basic training. Um, One of my recruits, I started working with him. Um, I didn't really know his living situation too well, which is probably bad on me. But I didn't want to dig down too deep. He ended up living in his car for like the last 2 months. When I finally got that out of him, um, I tried everything I could to get him the soonest ship out date that he could for basic training. That way he could get off the streets and into somewhere that he was a lot safer in, right? Because living in your car is not very
Mhm.
safe. So for me, that really just hit home, and it made me feel really good that I was able to do that for him. So that's probably the best one I think I have. So
It's great. Yeah, look, you want a
Yeah.
career in the military? I mean, look, you want a career in the military? Chase is your guy to go to. Go to airforce.com, go to Aim High. Call up Rob Wilkins personally, and he'll convince you.
I'm biased though. I won't give you, I will give you most of the good story because it's been great for me and my family. But um, so we also want to share one of the great things, thanks to Dan Solomon, Jake Wood, Frank Sepe, Angelica, and the team there at Muscle Fitness. We are going to have a booth for Chase and the recruiters out there at this year's Olympia. So the details are still being worked out, but we think that America needs to know about its heroes. When America gets in trouble, we don't call sports stars and we don't call Tom Cruise. We call the men and women who are our uniform, from
Right.
military, from firefighters and police officers and teachers. But we really want to try to do is all we can to increase awareness. Doesn't mean that we want you to sign up, but at least you know about it, because we often hear stories about the military that comes from someone's grandfather or a
Mhm.
grandma, but they're old. Those stories were accurate at that time, but the military has dramatically changed. So to hear from active duty people who are currently serving, I think, is a better way to get information that's evidence-based, that's accurate. And so we will have a booth at the Olympia, and we're looking at doing some cool things and expanding on this relationship as much as possible. And Chase, you've been a big help, connecting us to the right people. We really appreciate all your guidance support on this, and the sky's the limit. You have our support, and we look forward to helping you as much as we can.
Absolutely. And we'll see Sharjo Grant, the highest ranking IFB Pro League, right?
That's
Military.
right, Lieutenant Colonel. He's Army though. We
Yeah.
really want to talk about them, do we?
But yes, but we'll come by the booth, and we'll do some social media lives, and hopefully get some more eyes on the recruitment process.
Yeah. So Chase, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
no, what I'd like to share is if you've ever thought about the military, or you're just somewhat interested or somewhat interested in just finding a better way to pursue your goals or your aspirations in life, right? One way is the military. We have a lot of great leaders in America who have served in the military. So it's something that you can look into. or just go talk to a recruiter, see how we might be able to help you reach those goals, right? So you can either do that by going to airforce.com, going to Google, going to the Aim High app, find the local recruiter, or trying to find me on Instagram. You can find me at Rockledge Air Force Recruiter on Instagram, and I'll answer any questions you guys have, just to help you reach those goals and aspirations. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much, Chase. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for what you're doing and keeping our nation free. As I often say, freedom is not free. So when you mentioned all those benefits, you're not just getting them because we want to give them to you. You've earned them. And for all the men and women who serve our country, those are things that you've earned. So take advantage of all the opportunities and the benefits that come your way. But again, Chase, we'll be in touch with you more. Thanks for what you do. Again, Frank, thanks for your continued support. And oh, Frank, tell Chase about your good protein bars there that you've got coming out. Maybe you can send him a sample of them.
Would love to send. Actually, they'll be at the Olympia. So yeah, we have Sepe Nutrition protein treats, marshmallow crisp, delicious, high protein, low sugar, low carbs, and we'll have multiple flavors there. That we have them in multiple countries around the world right now. So perfect snack, especially if you're
for basic trainees.
Yes.
Maybe we can replace the one that Chase told us about. They can get Sepe bars at basic
That's
training.
right.
They'll come out all nice, buffed and in shape.
They'll be veined out and low body fat. That's what we want.
Never know. It's got to start with the
Iron
dream.
Man, like Iron Man.
oh, yeah.
Why not you, right, Frank?
Why not? But,
all
no,
right. Thanks,
you for your
Chase.
service,
We'll be in
Chase.
touch again.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.